NASCAR is at Bristol Motor Speedway this weekend, and for the first time in over 10 years, AJ Allmendinger has won a Cup Series pole. I couldn't really believe it when I saw the headline. I know they've had a ton of speed in qualifying this year. They haven't really had the results in the race. Those darn ECR engines that AJ likes to blame. But engines worked fine this weekend in qualifying. AJ Allmendinger on pole for the second time in his career. First pole came back in 2015 at the Glen. And this is also, from what I read, I believe, this is Colleague Racing's first pole on an oval in the Cup Series. So good job to AJ. Maybe he'll play a bit of a spoiler here this weekend. I think we had one or two non-playoff drivers win in the playoffs last year, whether that was when they were already eliminated or they just were not playoff drivers. I know Ross Chastain won at Kansas when he was not in the playoffs. I don't remember if he missed the playoffs last year or not, but anyways, could be spoiler. Xfinity officially is starting their playoffs this weekend. Rooting for my boy Connor Zilic to keep up the dominance, and hopefully he can win the championship. But anyways, welcome to Who's That Driver, episode 21. I'm your host, Zach Rogers, and today we're doing a little bit of a different episode. It will pretty much have zero focus on anything online related, as this guest has not really dived into online racing per se. I believe he might have done a couple of commentaries, which we'll get into. But this is our first officially focused offline episode only. And I am joined by Alex Graham, aka AG the Channel. Thank you for joining me, Alex.
Thank you for having me. This is a great honor, and I'm excited to be here. And it's funny you open up with the Bristol race. I was actually at the Bristol night race last year, and it was a fun experience. I actually went with Andrew, who was your first guest on the podcast, which I know we'll talk about Andrew in this mutual friend of ours. Um, but yeah, it's hard to believe that was a year ago when I went to that race, and now here we are a year later. But things are good.
Yeah, I want to say I think I might have seen a photo. Did you guys take a photo? I might have seen a photo on Facebook.
We probably did.
Yeah,
He probably took a pic. I don't know if we took a picture of the two of us there or not. But I know he took a picture of me and my other good friend Caleb, who we'll also talk about as well. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
right on, right on. Well, so first off, let's talk about motorsports in general. So we do got Bristol this weekend. It's an elimination race. We'll go over a couple stories. I have it in my notes to always talk about the previous week in racing, but most of the time it just gets glossed over because we end up talking about the previous week in online racing. So looking at elimination situation here, Berry is must win. Bowman is basically must win. SVG is close, but kind of needs some guys to have problems if he's going to point in at all. And then I forget who the other one's sitting now. Oh, Austin Dillon will need some help. And then guys that are pretty much good to go on points, I believe, include Bubba, Larson. I think Byron and Bell are pretty much set as well, unless they wreck out on lap number one. Do you think the current four sitting out in Cup will maintain, or do you think someone might have a bad night, or maybe one of those guys outside gets the win?
It's hard to tell, especially with how Bristol is. It's not particularly in the current moment one of the better racetracks. So where you qualify pretty much dictates where you finish. Not necessarily. A lot of things can happen, of course, but in a long term in the playoffs, I really don't see any of those guys really having a chance. They're really not four of the guys that I particularly see going all the way. Cindric, I can kind of see going a little ways. He's a pretty solid driver. But Dylan, Van Gisbergen, Bowman, Berry, they're kind of just there, and they've kind of just been that. But other than SVG on the road courses, he's really been there on the road courses. But I don't know. We'll have to see how that all shakes out Saturday night. I'm intrigued to see how it ends up shaking out. I will say my biggest intrigue is, are they going to change this playoff format? Because I'm probably one of the biggest advocates to go to a full season or original chase format. I'm not very vocal about it because I'm just busy with other things, obviously. But I would be very much interested in seeing a better format going into next season, which maybe we'll get. Maybe we'll get. We'll see if that ends up being the case. But should be a lot of fun though going through the playoffs, and we'll definitely have some good races.
Yeah, one fun idea, and we'll get more into offline in a little bit. But one fun idea that I did one year for my offline, one of my offline leagues is there was a chase, but the way it worked was it was winning in to make the playoff field, and then the first 9 races, if you won a race, you were in the final race to go for a championship. Now, it could be
Interesting.
any number of 9 drivers could go at it for the one race up, or it could have been 2 drivers, or heck, maybe the one guy wins all 9 races and he's just the champion. But I feel like that would be kind of fun, though I am over the whole one race is what it decides it. But imagine being the guy that wins the first race in the playoffs, and now you have just 8 weeks to prepare for for the finale. Like, you don't even have to worry about the other 8 races in between. But ultimately, what I heard on Door Bumper Clear, and I believe this could be the format, considering Jordan Bianchi, I believe, is on the playoff board, or he usually gets all the inside scoop. It sounds like they might do like a 3 race round, and then do like a 4 race playoff final round. I'm not sure how many eliminations we would be looking at if we would have the field shrink. I do think the field should shrink. I think 16 is too many. I think 12 was always a nice number. And that would be a third of the field now. I mean, when we had 43 cars, like, I would say, yeah, 16's all right. I mean, it's not exactly 33%, but it would be close enough. But we only have 36 guys going full time. It should be probably 12 at the max. Maybe you could, and I don't know if they're thinking about this, if they were to do 12, you eliminate 3 after the first round, you eliminate another 3 after the second round, and then you got 6 guys going at it for 4 races.
It's definitely a step in the right direction if they do that. That would pique my interest a bit more than what we have currently. And yeah, I've always found, especially in recent years, that my interest in NASCAR kind of wanes this time of year for probably for the reason of the playoffs just being the way they are. I became a NASCAR fan around 2011, 2012 more specifically, and that was when they still had the original 10 race chase. And I thought that concept was a lot of fun, and it was actually really fun to see the points racing the way it was. I didn't appreciate it enough when I was younger as I do now. But I'll take any step in the right direction. I don't think it can really get any worse than it is right now in terms of just how uninteresting it is for me, and how much the rest of the season should count towards the title, because there are definitely ways you can hop, skip, and jump your way into the final four, and kind of sneak your way as a champion without really being the best driver throughout the whole season. But that's neither here or there, and I think that's a big reason why I like doing offline, because I have full control over how I want the point system, everything to be. That's something that I've always really enjoyed about it with my series. And I currently run the 10 race chase. I have it this past season in the Wall Cup series, which is the main series that I do. We ran a 22 race regular season and a 10 race chase. And it still came down to the last race, though. I would say that our finale this year wasn't the best finale that we've had. But that's the thing. You never know how it's going to play out, and that's the fun part about it. But the champion we got absolutely deserved it. And we're already working for next season with that.
Well, right on. Well, so before we officially dive full force into offline, how you got into it, and all that good stuff, let's first just talk about what got you into motorsports, who your first favorite driver was, who it is now, which I think I know who it is now, but you can say it anyway. And then I believe, obviously, the favorite form here is NASCAR, unless that has changed. So without further ado, go ahead.
Yeah, you might be surprised at what I'll say here. So NASCAR was the first motorsport that I got into. And when I was a kid, I had Hot Wheels. I mean, who didn't have Hot Wheels as a kid, And I still have all those Hot Wheels, and I actually still play with them occasionally. I have a 3-lane racetrack that I have, and I try doing a little season with them every September. I don't always get to it, but I've always done it in September. It's a lot of fun. But regardless of the fact, my first real exposure to NASCAR would have been the 2011 Daytona 500. I knew it existed, and I had kind of seen a couple races here and there, but that was really one of the first races that I watched. I would have only been 11 years old at the time, so I was still kind of young. But that was the one that Trevor Bayne won, and that was the first year that they repaved Daytona and they had the tandem draft. And I really enjoyed watching that race. And when I was younger, I watched for the crashes and all that. As I got older, of course, I became to enjoy the racing aspect of it a lot more. Um, didn't really watch much NASCAR in 2011, but 2012 came around, and it was the 2012 Budweiser Shootout. I remember watching that race, and that race is what really turned me on into being a motorsports fan, NASCAR fan at the time. And if you remember that race, the 2012 Bud Shootout at Daytona, you know how just awesome of a race that was. It was a wild race, super close finish. Kyle Busch won just by absolutely nothing over Tony Stewart. It was such a fantastic race. And the next weekend was the Daytona 500. So I was so excited for that, and it got rained out to Monday night, and my mom made me go to bed before I could see the finish of that race. So I missed the jet dryer because I was in bed, had to go to school the next day. So that was unfortunate. I missed that, but that was really the first season that I watched in NASCAR, and I really especially got into it in 2013. My first true favorite driver was David Reagan. When he won the 2013 Aaron's 499, that was such a thrilling race for me to watch. I, to this day, remember it like it was yesterday. It's hard to believe that it was 12 years ago when that race took place. But it actually eventually inspired my first username on the channel, which is now AG the channel, is DR34DG38. That race really inspired me to make that name. David Reagan was my favorite driver pretty much until he retired from full time racing, at least in the Cup Series. But that was such a great race. Over the years, as you get busier with life, you have to find different things that you enjoy, and have to know what you like and what you don't like, and just move forward with what you enjoy. I've, especially over the past few years, have really come to enjoy open wheel racing, and more specifically IndyCar. I've actually attended the Indianapolis 500 for 4 straight years, and plan on going again next year for the 110th running. Um, and absolutely love doing that. Meet up with a lot of guys out there in Indiana, Indianapolis, and we just have a good time going to that race. I think over the years, and I still love NASCAR, and I will still go to NASCAR races, of course, still watch it. Um, the playoff format, stage racing, racing product, it's not as good as what I remember when I was younger. And I'll still always support the teams and always support the sport, but it's not what it used to be. And it's something that I kind of just like, don't enjoy this as much as I used to, but I do like IndyCar, and I do like the way they do their championship. So strict points championship the whole way through. And I realized as I got older how much I enjoyed just the purity of having a strict points championship, which is why I've kind of leaned more towards IndyCar. But the Indy 500 is such a special race. I think, and I don't want to like have a controversial take here, but I think the Indianapolis 500 is a better event than the Daytona 500. Having been there at the Indy 500 is amazing, and it is such a fun experience. And though this year's race wasn't the best race, I find that the racing of the Indy 500 is much better than that of the Daytona 500, especially over past years, because I seen the wreck at the last lap every single year in the Daytona 500 now. Indy 500 is a harder race to win, and it takes a lot of skill, and they're going so fast. It's the fastest closed circuit race in the world, and it's so much fun to watch and be there. So that's kind of where I'm at now with that in real life motorsports, and my fandom. Of course, like I said, still watch NASCAR, still love it. Went to Dover this year when it was 85 degrees. No, 95 degrees. It was terrible. And I mean, terrible to be baking in the stands. I still have tan marks from that experience. That was like 2 months ago, and I sunburned really bad. Um, but but no, that's kind of where I'm at right now with real life motorsports. I'm not particularly don't particularly have a favorite driver in the Cup Series. My favorite driver overall is actually Grant Enfinger in the Truck Series, though I'm also a very huge fan of Roger Carruth, and I have a very good reason for that, of course, because we'll probably get into it later. He actually signed up for my NR offline races 10 years ago when I started doing this essentially 10 years ago. So pretty cool to see how he's progressed and where he is today. But yeah, I can go on and on about all of that. But that's kind of where I'm at with real life motorsports right now. Indy 500 is my most favorite event to go to each year, and absolutely love it.
Oh, right on, Alex. Yeah, that was a nice long answer. I will say I agree. I think the Indy 500 is bigger than the Daytona 500. 10 years ago, I might have disagreed, but since I have started watching the Indy 500, I think the first one I watched was the 100th running in full. That was the one
Alexander Rossi.
Rossi won on fuel mileage. Yep, that made me a Rossi fan. And, I don't know if I watched the 500 the next year, but for the last 2 or 3 years now, I've made it a note to try to watch the whole event because I do think it is a huger atmosphere than the Daytona 500. Also, knowing there's so much stuff going on in the infield too at Indianapolis because it's such a huge facility.
Hmm.
You fit so many more people in there. And the Daytona 500, anyone can win that now, so it's not really what it used to be. Tony Stewart even said that in an interview a little while ago. So, yeah, I agree with you on that one. Who's your favorite IndyCar driver?
Oh, so it's interesting. I'm a big IndyCar fan, but I don't particularly have a favorite IndyCar driver. Though I will say, and I don't know how this started. One of my friends said that I sound like Ed Carpenter. So I always kind of root for Ed Carpenter in the Indy 500. He only really does the Indy 500 now. That's pretty much the only race that he participates in. Um, but I really, and I think this is something too, if you've ever been to the Indianapolis 500, everyone in the stands cheers whoever wins, regardless of who it is. I really appreciate that sportsmanship that the fans have about that race. Um, and you don't particularly have to have a favorite driver to enjoy the Indy 500 and enjoy IndyCar. And I just love it for the purity of it. I will say I love Connor Daly. I think he's a great driver to root for, a great underdog to root for. Um, and I got to say, I have a lot of respect for Alex Palou and what he's doing. And a lot of people don't particularly like how much he wins and how many championships he's won, but what he is doing is very impressive. And I have a lot of respect for him, what he's been able to do in his short career. I mean, he only has been in the IndyCar series for 5 seasons now, and he's won the championship 4 times. So I think that's pretty cool that you have a driver that's dominant like that, and you can say is just the dominant driver. You really don't see that in NASCAR to that level anymore. It's cool to see that over in IndyCar.
Yeah, and I really wish we could see that in NASCAR again, but I feel like the only way that we would see that again is if they went back to kind of like the Gen 6 era days where they still had like a ton of horsepower, not near the end of the Gen 6 where they had reduced the horsepower all the way down and now the cars were driving kind of like they do now with the next gen cars. The next gen car and the way it's built and the way they have to set up for it and the lack of practice, it's just anyone can really win now. I feel like maybe now though I think this is the fourth year. It's definitely like the top teams have become the top teams again. Like it's Gibbs, it's Hendrick, it's Penske. Though Penske seems to suffer still at tracks that aren't Las Vegas and like flat tracks. So they're still probably working out their kinks, but I mean, Denny seems to do really well in this car. I think that's probably because he has always driven really off the right front. This is definitely a right front heavy car. That's why guys like Kyle Busch have struggled tremendously. They are so used to driving on the right rear and driving it loose, you cannot do that in this car. And I think that is why Kyle keeps wrecking almost every week. He's just, he drove like that for 20 years almost, and it's hard to change. But for like Denny, you know, nothing much changed for him. And then other like younger guys, it's easy for them to relearn and adapt because they're still so new. I think Kyle is just really suffering. I think Kyle would be doing a lot better on a full time basis if he just maybe, and he won't, but if he maybe just quit Cup and did like what Amarola is doing, just run like 12 to 18 Xfinity races a year and maybe do a lot of truck races because you can still see the talent is there when he goes down and runs those races. It's just his the way he drives does not fit the car. So
Yeah, it's a shame to see that too. It's definitely interesting to see, how much has changed. But to your point, it's not as nice to see certain drivers just not dominate the way they did. And when I was younger, I used to hate it when it was like the same driver winning every single week. But as you get older, I think you appreciate that a lot more. And that's something that I've really come to appreciate is when drivers dominate. And now it's just like if someone, and I think I go back to when David Reagan won that Talladega race all the way back in 2013. That was a true upset win. That was a special moment because that didn't happen often where you had drivers from small teams like that go to victory lane. Now it's kind of just all over the place. I mean, you just randomly will have, a driver win a race, and it's like, huh, how did that happen? And it happens quite often now, and it takes away from the specialness of it being an upset win because it's almost kind of not really a thing anymore. I mean, we just went off of Bristol qualifying, and like they were so close to each other. It's like, what's the difference? I mean, AJ Allmendinger won the pole. It's like, huh? That would mean a lot more if we saw those same drivers win every single week, but that's kind of not necessarily the case with this car. But it's a shame, like I said, I still love NASCAR. I still always enjoy it. But it's not what it used to be. But you know, there's always other things that are good, and like I said, it's especially why I've kind of learned to really appreciate IndyCar and where it is at, even though it's got its fair share of issues as well. I find it to be a lot more entertaining as a whole than NASCAR in its current state.
yeah, and I will say last thing regarding Bristol here, and then we'll dive into NR offline. Even 20 years ago, it takes more than a tenth or two faster to get by a guy. The old cars, you could bump them in the middle of the corner, get them out of shape. You can't do that in this car. You can't even get close to the bumper, in the middle of the corner because of the diffuser and all the dirty air. And this car, you really have to kind of push the guy off before the corner to where like he carries too much speed going in, and then he has to check up big in the center. Um, there is no bumping the guy out of the way in the middle of the corner. That really only works still for the Xfinity car and the trucks. So in the Cup car, I think I've seen it though a few times where guys have gotten someone in the middle of the corner and they hit him, and it's like the car don't move. It's so stiff, it does not do anything. You have to just ship them off at the start of the corner where the lifting braking zone is to really do anything. Otherwise, it's just the parade lap.
Yeah, I was at that Bristol night race last year. That's all it was.
Yeah.
Drove 10 hours down there just to watch them drive in circles. People make the stereotypical claim that it's just a bunch of drivers driving in circles. Well, that's what it was that night, and it was cool to be there. I mean, don't get me wrong, the atmosphere and the experience of seeing a race on a track like that at Bristol was very cool, but really wasn't much of a race. It was a bunch of cars just going in circles that night. That's probably what it's going to be on Saturday night too, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, I'll be at a concert, so I will miss the whole thing,
There you
which
go.
will
Lucky
probably be
you.
a good thing.
I'll
Yeah,
be at work, so
yeah. Just watch the last 100 laps. That might be all that's worth watching. But so anyway, let's dive into NR. So first off, question I ask everybody is, how did you get into NR 2003 and when?
this would have been. So I actually started making NASCAR stop motions. That's actually how I started on YouTube. And really, my first exposure to YouTube would have been Doubly Dud, Doubly Cup Series, who, Eric's, I mean, he's astronomically out there now with what he does, which is great. It's great to see him, do what he's doing. But, I've been a subscriber to him for, man, now 12, 13 years. I was his 5,000th subscriber, as I boldly claimed. And I actually was his 5,000th subscriber all the way back in, what was that, 2013 or 2014. So I started doing NASCAR stop motions. If you've ever done them, if you've ever done a NASCAR stop motion, anything like that before, it takes a lot of time, and that quickly kind of faded away. My love for that faded away pretty quickly when I just realized just how much time it took. I first heard about NR 2003. I want to say it was probably early 2014. I was, very much in the making NASCAR stop motions, probably about a year into doing it. And I came across, I believe his name's Carter Adelman, and I know he's a friend of Gino Harvey, who's the Athletic Cup Series. I saw on his second channel in NR 2003 League, and I was like, "What is this? This is kind of strange looking. I've never heard of this game before." Um, and it was like Discount Tire Cup Series or something like that. That was my first exposure into realizing what the game was. I thought, "Oh wow, this is really cool. It'd be so much fun to have this game and run series and leagues on it." So sometime later that year, as most of us probably did at this point, I found a way to download the game online. I do actually have a physical copy of the game now, though. So I, do have it. Definitely am proud to have it because it's been a big part of my life and something I will never take for granted. A very, very good part of my life, no doubt about it. And we'll get into that, of course. But got the game, and then the night I got the game, I was like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my goodness, I have it, and I could do all these things with it, and I just started doing it. I really had no like basis. I really didn't watch offline leagues or anything prior to getting it. But I had done commentary for the stop motions. I had an idea of what to do, and I just started doing it. And I already had a bit of a following with the stop motions, so a lot of people saw them, and they just signed up, and the rest is kind of history from there. Went through some things in 2014 that I'm not particularly proud of, and we're not going to, don't need to go into that here tonight. But realistically, everything kind of started in its current track in 2015. Moved everything from 2014 behind. It was a bit of a tough year for me. Just restarted everything and did my first official race April 1st, 2015. So we actually, on the channel, we celebrated the 10th year of that race, 10-year anniversary of that race this year. So it's hard to believe it's been over a decade since this officially all started. Um, but it was Chick-fil-A Cup Series Daytona 500 was won by Jesse Turner.
Hey,
And Jesse Turner was the first ever winner on the channel officially.
my man
He's still
Jesse
still around
Turner.
on my channel as well, so it's such an honor to have him around for over a decade. And there are guys that have been signing up and being a part of this for over a decade now, and Jesse is one of those guys. 25 career wins on my channel now. I think I have a whole wins list of everybody who's won on the channel, so that's compiled since day one. Um, but yeah, and it's interesting. It's always been, a lot of people have always been interested in it on my end, and I don't really know why. I mean, but it's been great. We do weekly signups now, and the Wall Walk Up Series is kind of a big deal. And so many people want to be a part of it, and it's just finding that balance and limit. But there's always so many people involved back then, and some of them are still around to this day. Like I mentioned, Raja Karuf was one of those guys who was involved in the series back in 2015, and obviously he's now a real life championship contender. I would say in the truck series, though, Corey Heim has been going off over there, and he deserves the championship. But I'm rooting for my man Raja Karuf, who was actually the first ever champion on the channel. He won the Chick-fil-A Cup Series championship in season number one all the way back in 2015. So that's how it really got started, and over the years, I've met so many people, so many great people, and some who I've known for over a decade. Um, the two people that really helped me run the channel at this point, Caleb Rose and Nathan Stapleton. I've known Nathan for almost 10 years, probably over 10 years at this point. Such a great guy, and he does so many things. He runs our weekly series on the channel. And then Caleb is right now doing the Turkey Hill Truck series, which is kind of the main series we're doing at the moment. We're kind of in the off season for the Wawa Cup series. And I'm kind of
Caleb,
taking
last
a little
name.
bit of a break at
Last
the moment.
name.
Caleb Rose.
Okay, Caleb
Caleb
Rose. Yep,
Rose.
know him. Yep.
Yes. He does online as well, and he if you want to, he's got a lot of knowledge. He's got more knowledge than I do, I think, with this game. So if you ever want someone else, Caleb's your guy. But it was a couple years ago, and and I'm 26 now, so like I'm working a full-time job, having this great career now, and that takes up a lot of time, as you probably well know. So I wanted to keep it going and keep the level of it. That I've been keeping up with it for a while, but I need someone to help me out. So Caleb came on board, and he absolutely loves this game too. I mean, he loves it probably more than I do at this point, and he does such a great job with all the series he does. He did the IndyCar series for a couple of years. We'll see if he does it next year. Like I said, doing the Turkey Hill Truck Series right now, but he's my right hand man. He helps me out with the signups, helps me out with organizing things, and it's a big operation. With the way it is right now, which is kind of crazy to think about. But he's great with that. Nathan, of course, he's been doing NR for a long time as well. He's been doing it probably 7 years. He's been doing the offline stuff. He does the weekly signups for us, and we do that just because there's so many people that want to be a part of it on our channel. And like giving the opportunity to everyone. There's a race every week you can sign up for and be a part of it, and just have fun with it. And so many people just have fun with it now, and that's what I really enjoy about it. The community's so great at this point, and it's just such an honor to be a part of it. So I'm going to ramble on a lot, and I apologize, but
You're
that's kind
fine.
of the short little bit of it. And it's just so much fun. And the thing that's kept me in it all these years is the people. My best friends are in this community. Like my best friends in my life are in this community now. And I've been very fortunate to meet a lot of them in person as well. I've met Caleb, I've met Nathan in person. Of course, Andrew, you know Andrew very well. Andrew is my best friend. Um, and he only lives about an hour and a half from me, so that helps. But he's such a great person, and we actually went to Bristol together last year. We're going to Maple Grove on Sunday. See a different form of motorsports, which that's going to be a lot of fun. But Andrew especially, one of my best friends, and we go and we talk about things that just are deep. We're really close to each other, and I actually haven't talked to him in a second, but such a great guy, as you know. And you had him as your first guest on this podcast, and yeah, he's definitely one I got to shout out in all this, because he's been a great person in my life, great support in my life. So happy to know him. But there's so many other people as well, and if you give me enough time, I can probably mention them all. But it's a lot of people, a lot of people.
Yeah, there were so many more people in offline 10, 12 years ago. I got into offline a few years before you did. It's actually funny. Growing up, I had the discs for NASCAR Racing 4, NASCAR Racing 2002, and 2003,
No,
which the computer
you
I
did it
was
legally.
running on. Yeah, well, I was like 4, 5, and 6. My mother paid for them, not me.
Oh, there you go.
Um, but so the computer at the time, it was like a Windows 98 computer. Um, so the game that ran the best was NASCAR Racing 4, so I primarily used that one. I remember there was a time where I was, quote unquote, basically doing an offline league. I just didn't realize it at the time because I was like 7, 8, 9 years old, just goofing around. I deleted all the cars in the game except for Dale Sr. and Dale Jr. And then I had all these custom cars that were just like a bunch of numbers and like different color cars with like numbers like crappily drawn on them, because like I'm 8, 9 years old using a mouse. Like I don't know what I'm doing. Like I'm just doing my best to make the number look okay. And all the cars had like just fictional character names, whether it was like from, I remember I used Anakin Skywalker on a car for one of my one of the fictional cars.
That wouldn't be allowed to sign up on my channel, by the
I
way. I try to
know.
catch,
I know.
IPs and things like that. Sometimes they slip through, and if they do, we just let it slide. But we try to be kind of realistic with
But
our
this was
characters per
pre-internet.
se.
I didn't
Yeah,
have
there you
internet
go.
access, so to allow me to continue here, um, yeah, I just had it filled up with all kinds of characters and stuff. I don't remember most of them. I just remember that I definitely used Anakin Skywalker, which shout out to Star Wars. Love Star Wars. Even, well, old Star Wars. Not really Star Wars now, but it comes and goes. Um, but yeah, around 2011, 2012, I was starting to get YouTube access, mostly at my grandfather's. And I like was like one day just randomly like, oh, like enter 2003, like whatever. And I like well, at first I think I saw an iRacing stream, and I was like, oh, what's this? Like I didn't know you could race online or whatever. I'm like, is this NR? But it was iRacing or something similar. So then I looked up NR stuff, and I just was watching Crash Comps. And I'm like, whoa, like there's like new mods and stuff, and yada yada yada. And then I realized like, oh yeah, like you can do I found Trent Dunham's channel, Trent the Hedgie, not Trent the Dunham. Uh, Found Trent DeHedge's channel Sega Cup Series in 2012, I think. And I did a non-televised offline league in 2012, and then I got my own laptop at Christmas, and in 2013 I eventually created my own channel and started doing my own stuff. So at first I was recording on a crappy Walmart MP3 player that could only do like 15, 20 minutes of recording at max. So every time I did a race, I had to dump the file out onto my computer, and I used the Windows Movie Maker to render
Oh,
the
yeah.
video, and I would upload them straight to YouTube. And I realized really quickly, because at the time at my mother's, we only had DSL, and those videos did not want to upload in the amount of time that I was going to have on the internet. So what I started to do is I would save the videos and then put them on a USB, bring them to my dad's house, and upload them on his computer, because I had at least the hour to upload them. So,
That's
or I would
cool.
take my laptop with me and Wi-Fi connected.
Mhm.
But yeah, so that's how I did it in the early days. So I'm curious, what did your early days upload recording process look like?
It's kind of similar. I used Windows Movie Maker. I used Windows Movie Maker probably up until around 2018, 2019, actually, because it was just simple and easy to use, and I didn't have to pay for it. Um, when I first got the game, and I remember it was probably the first like six or so races that I did, I recorded them on a camera. I don't even think I have the camera anymore. I think I saw it the other day when I was cleaning my desk out, but I think I actually got rid of it. But it was not the best quality, of course. 4:3 ratio, terrible quality, 360 pixels, whatever you call it. But I didn't know how to work a screen recorder, and then I eventually figured out how to work Bandicam, which I think a lot of
Good
people
old
used that
Bandicam.
back in the day. Yeah, good old Bandicam, and eventually, I don't know how I found a cracked version of it so I can
There
get rid
were
of the watermark. I ended up
people
doing
spreading
that.
it. Yeah.
And then eventually, I got the computer that I'm on now, which by the way, this computer is going to be leaving us in a month because it cannot upgrade to Windows 11. I've had this computer that I'm on right now since 2017, so almost 8 years.
Oh,
And
you're due
it's
for an
finally,
upgrade then. It's not a big deal.
yes, and I already got the computer. I just got to get everything on it, which is, I'm putting that off because that's going to be a big job. But once I got this computer, realized that I can use OBS, and OBS is
Oh,
very
way
good
better.
for recording NRM, especially nowadays. It's just a second, not even a second thought to use something like that if you have a strong enough computer. So recording NR and posting it now is so much easier than it was 10, 12 years ago, which is great. But I remember those old Windows Movie Maker days. I take 10 minutes to edit it and just upload it. Now it takes me like an hour, 2 hours to edit a race because we got all these graphics and got the music and all this stuff that I put together with it. And I want to make it presentable. I want to make it. I've always tried to make it, especially over the past few years, enjoyable for anyone to watch, whether you're in the series or not. And I think to some degree we do accomplish that, um, and especially with the Wall Walk Up series because you know, we introduced a ratings format a couple of years ago, and everyone kind of has control over it, and it really creates a natural flow of who's good and who's not good. And I think as we were talking earlier with NASCAR, you have so much parity in real life NASCAR now that it's not as interesting. Well, don't quite have that in the main series in the series anymore. And it's actually very interesting because of it, because you have your good drivers, you have the drivers you expect to run well, and it's fun to see how it ends up playing out with all these good drivers up front. Um, but yeah, that those races back in the day, we just made sure the ratings were equal, made sure everyone had an equal chance. Always cared about everyone being on equal ground back in the day. And I still do to this day. Everyone has an equal shot at the ratings as well. But we just let them loose. I recorded, and that was that. And it was simple back then. A lot simpler than it is now, but it was fun. And obviously I love it. I wouldn't be doing it for 10 years if I didn't love it. But it was definitely something else back then. Just thinking how simple it was compared to now. Now that I think about it, and yeah, that was something else.
What's your equal ratings of choice? A lot of people will use 40/60 min
I
max.
think
I used to
what
always do 80/100.
Yeah, so what I actually did was everything was either like 40, 60, or I tried some different ranges. But aggression was always 100, 100 for
Hmm.
everybody. Um, and I did that, because I wanted them to crash a little bit, try to have some realism in that, have some cautions in the races. Um, but I always did aggression 100, 100, and the super speedway races especially were really nuts back in the day with that because, you know, they'd just be all on each other. And actually, now that I think about it, I think I started out doing where everything was the same point. I think it was 100, 100, and then 55, 55 for everything else. I don't think I even had a range with it, which over time I, learned to do the range, and that helped create a little bit of a difference in how they raced. But yeah, that we I tried to make it interesting right from the get-go. And the ratings obviously have a big effect in how they drive, and especially have learned that with doing the ratings as I do now with the Cup Series and the Truck Series and all that. So definitely a very fascinating, thing to think about. But that's how I did it. It was 100 aggression, and then I think I did a single point 55, 55 for everything when I first started. So they were just all on each other in those early races.
So, a fun little fact here. Recently, this year, I was told something that I did not have never heard before, and it has to do with the driver track ratings of road course, short track, speedway, super speedway. I was told by someone who's very familiar with NR 2003 that those ratings actually just average out, and they're always the same average out every time. So if you set it to 8100, it's just 90 every time you go to that track type. There's not actually a variable. So I don't know how tested or proven that is, but I trust his word. He's very knowledgeable with the game, the person I'm mentioning. So
I'm
I've
sure.
been doing
Sure he is.
I've been doing mock series since the beginning of the year because I don't do offline anymore. But I wanted to do like a mock series, so I started all the way back in 1972 Cup because that's when the modern era started. So we're basically rewriting history from the start of the modern era. So it's been a ton of fun. I've done alterations, different drivers have been going to different teams now. I'm in 1991 now. I haven't done it in like a week, but I started doing Bush when Bush officially started tracking stuff and became a series in 1982, 83, something like that. So that has been a ton of fun, and so we're getting obviously close to the start of trucks, and then that's as far as I'll go. Brandon Morris and the NSDCA, they do so much more. They do ARCA, they do Bush North, they do. I think they might do. I think they do West, and they're doing kart and IndyCar now too. There's multiple guys running that. I think Kamikaze and Peter Onjak help out on those as well when they can. Um, Another person helps out as well. So they're having fun with that, and I finally I mostly just sim it. They watch it. They do like 50% races to real life, and they watch it. But I just I just sim, post it, and I like stat track like crazy. So that's the main reason I've been doing this. Like, well, I want to stat track it and see like how much different it could be. So that's been a ton of fun. A couple of things that changed were David Pearson ended up being the 7-time Cup champion over Richard Petty. Petty only actually won one more title in my mock. And then Bobby Allison actually ended up winning three because I was using the old Winston format in some years where they were doing stuff by like currency and stuff, which actually cost Allison the 72 title, in my opinion, looking at the way those races went. Because he won like 10 races that year or something, and he didn't win the championship, which is crazy to think about. Um, but so yeah, I've been having a ton of fun doing that since I stopped doing offline recording because honestly, when you talk about it, it's a lot of work and effort now to make it like as presentable as you can be, and I obviously did my stuff with Neymar in the early days. Then I was with NRSL, and I was always pretty laid back about it. I didn't care for the overlays or anything because I realized quickly that it's going to be a ton of work, and I don't really want to spend 2 hours editing. So I just was like, I'll just record in full, and I'm going to be good with that. And that's enough for me. Um, But once I got with the FBRL and started doing the Napa Truck Series, I knew it was going to be more effort, but I was happy to do it because I knew it was going to be a well-watched series. So I had a ton of fun doing that, and that ultimately came to an end, and happy with my time doing offline, really.
Yeah, and you did it for a long time too. You mentioned Namor. I completely forgot about this, but I was a part of that. I think around the same time you were, way back in the day.
Yeah, Neymar
Obviously, that's Alan
was.
Cavagnaro who ran that, and haven't talked to him in a while, but Alan was a good friend of mine back in the day. And I was a part of that. 2014. It's really the first league I was a part of was Alan's league in Namar. So uh, I think that's when I first may have heard about you was when we were both in Namar. And I mean, this was like I was like 15 years old, and I really didn't communicate with people, online at the time because I was still very young. I really didn't start doing that until I was 18. Still had friends, of course, but yeah, that's something how far back that actually is. But yeah, and, you talk about just how you know much you've done, and you kind of feel like you got to a point where I've done enough with this. I've felt that a couple of times as well. And at least at this point for me, trying to find that balance of like how much can I do and still enjoy it. It was about 4 years ago or so. I actually like just quit mid-season with what I was doing, and I kind of like got to a breaking point, just completely burn out. And probably for about a year and a half, I really didn't do that much. And I really didn't get back into the swing of things until I started the Wall Cup series. Came up with the rating idea. I always wanted to introduce ratings, and I did so in the 2023 season. Um, but yeah, I had pushed myself too much in the middle of 2021. I just quit midseason, and you know since then I've been trying to balance it to how much I enjoy it versus how much I should push myself to do. And as I gain more responsibilities outside of this, trying to find at the time and trying to find what I really enjoy and what everyone else really enjoys, it's always kind of a struggle. But I feel like on our end, we've really kind of hit a good stride with what people enjoy. I mean, I mentioned, the Wall Cup series, and that's obviously the main series that I run. And everyone is just DMing me, and one is like, when can we start silly season for next season? It's like, hold on, just let me catch up here, all right? So we finally, got to the season's end a couple of weeks ago, and everyone's making these announcements, and that's the thing, like everything about the series and really what it is right now is just everyone else is doing. I just run the races basically, but everyone else has like they just have so much fun with their teams and their drivers and their announcements and the lore and the alliances. That's a big thing that like came out of this that never was a thing prior to doing the ratings. And that's a bit of a hot topic, over in the Wall Cup series and all that is you have all these teams and owners, and these are real people actually doing the ratings and sharing data, and that's what's so fascinating about it. And you got the Grattan Alliance, GRT, and you got other alliances that are forming. And it's interesting to see just like how it all ends up shaping out. And certain teams are good year after year, and certain drivers are good year after year, and certain ones aren't. And it's just so much fun to see that play out. And that has made me really enjoy it and keep going up to this point. Because I wouldn't have thought that 10 years after I started that I'd still be doing it, especially to this level. But as I said earlier, the people are really what make it what it is, and they are very invested in it, more so than I am. And they really make it a lot of fun, and kind of realistic without being too realistic. And it's always been a good balance with that.
Yeah, you talk about Neymar. I remember it was Allen. There was, I think, Jake Skavnicki was one who ran some
Jonathan
series.
Skivnicki.
Jonathan, okay, yep. Um, there was myself, and then I do remember there was like one or two other people. Maybe you were one of them when you were running your DR34, DG38
Yep.
channel handle. You might have
Hmm.
been one of the other ones, but those days are very hazy for me. I just remember it was really only a league for like maybe 2-3 years, and it got to the point where I was running Neymar series still, and Alan reached out to me and he's like, "Hey, just so you know, the league's pretty much dead. You're the only one running any series anymore." So I was like, "Oh, okay. I guess I'll drop the Neymar banner after this year." And then that's when I talked to Dylan Young, and I had already talked to Dylan Young a little bit because of online stuff, and I'd been on his channel, signing up for his leagues, and he offered me to go under the NRSL banner, and the rest was history.
There you go. Yeah, we run independent now. After Namor, I created my own league, um, NRLOA,
Yep.
which it may still exist. I actually don't even know. It's kind of strange because we I repurposed it again for some other people, and let other people take it over, and I think it might still be going on, but I'm
Was
not
that the
100%
one that
sure. But
Jordan Fisher took over, or am I thinking of another one?
that would have been I can't remember.
I
I
remember
really
the
don't know.
NRLOA though, and I also remember NOFSRL. I don't remember
Yeah,
what
and
leagues
that
that
was the
is.
one. That was the one I was a part of afterward. That would have been Marty Zakala, who was the
Yes,
league
Marty's.
runner of that one.
Good old
So
Marty.
Marty, good old Marty. And I was part of NOFSRL probably about 2.5 years. And then it kind of just faded out. And as we kind of all got older, I think we kind of was like, what's the point of the league? And it's kind of a cool thing. It's like these leagues are associated with each other, and you know, we're all under one banner. We all help each other out. But I think over time, I think more people are going to recognize what NR 2003 is than NRLOA. And
Right.
after a
Well,
while,
so
just
that
like
was,
what's the
just
point?
to
So
cut in here, so I can prevent you from going on another tangent and jumping through three other subjects. No offense, but
sorry,
I
I'm going
think
too fast.
the big thing with banners was that when we got into offline, banners were a really big deal. You obviously, you had the NNSCRA, which was, I think, the biggest banner. If you had gotten under the NNSCRA banner, I felt like that was like kind of like a really, you could almost say maybe a goal for some people. Like people would say, oh yeah, it's cool to have like a league under the NNSCRA banner. The NRSL was also pretty big back in the day. Dylan Young, Charles Sanford, Charles Jackson. But like a lot of guys that were under D Young's banner, those were the guys that were like the ones to first kind of just stop and then like not really continue. That was always a big thing that I was like, well, I'm not going to start the season if I don't think I'm going to finish it. And that's what happened with NRSL side of things for me because I had planned to run Digital Storm Cup, Jerky Pro Trucks for NRSL, and FBRL Napa. One more year for all of them all together. And, I just spent so much time testing tracks in the off season that I didn't give myself time to kind of heal and rest. And I got to the new year and I had the rosters pretty much all set to go for Digital Storm and Jerky Pro, but I was like, I wanted to do longer seasons one more time as like a last hurrah, and I was like, I don't see myself having the time or energy to put like an effort I would be proud of into this. So I decided that the seasons weren't going to happen, and I've thought at times like, now I have more free time, I could maybe put time to that, and it's like, nah, like I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Like you start to do other things and you're like, yeah, I don't want to take time away from those things just to do this one more time. So, it kind of is what it is. It's like funny. It's like, well, we didn't think it was going to be the final season when we recorded it, but they ended up being the final races. So, um, I'm happy with what I did, like I said, and yeah, it's just history. It's tough putting that time and effort in there. Burnout, man.
At least you ended off season and not mid season like I did the one time.
Well, I remember a
You
lot
know,
of people would do sign up videos, get 300
yeah,
views on their sign up videos, and then they would run that Daytona race and then quit. And then 6 months later, they're starting a new series again. I remember there were two or three people that were pretty notorious for that. And I was like, after like the third one, I was like, will you just finish the damn season first before you
yeah.
start over?
No,
But
I mean I've always it was only the one time I think that I kind of just quit mid season with something, and just to your point, it's just burnout. After a while, of doing it to that level, and I did a lot, especially during COVID. Especially, I did a lot, and I had nothing else to do. It just became too much, and I burned out. But I'm thankful that I found a good balance of where I'm at now, and I'm enjoying it. And then that's how the last few years have been. I've just enjoyed it, and I found my sweet spot with it, so it's good.
Yeah, it's really funny. When I started out, I could only record at my dad's because I didn't. My mother and my stepfather would always be home, and I wasn't comfortable, recording with them there. And I knew my dad would go out here and there, and he would let me stay at home as a teenager. So that's when I would record my like 15, 20, 30 minute races. Um, so, I would only record every other weekend and put races up. And then I remember the first year I did it, I got the summer vacation and I got to spend a week with my dad. And, he was mostly still going to work and I was just kind of hanging out. So I just recorded like a madman, and I think I did my last 10 races in 1 week, kind of Piju London esque style. And it's funny looking back, like, yeah, you used to have the energy to where, like, yeah, you would do a season in a month if you had the time to do it. Would you do that now? Heck no.
I can barely do 4 races in a month now at the level I do it, so that wouldn't work. I remember my first season that I did was done in a month, so the first full season that I actually did officially, it's still up. Went from April 1st to April 29th or April 30th. So I was like just race a day basically, but now it's like let me do 1 race a week. That's really what I've got in me now. But quality over quantity, I think it is a big thing. And there's so many tools that we have now that we didn't have back then where we can actually make it really good. And I'll piggyback a little bit to what Caleb does. Caleb, he has really done a great job with his presentation and in creating things to make it a good presentation. And of course, we do a lot more with the editing now than we did back then to make it look like a real race broadcast. Honestly, I think we do better than Fox does, which, is a pretty low bar to set. But, we like putting that together and actually making it a good presentation. So that's kind of where I'm at now with it, is like having the quality of the series, quality of the races, and what you're putting together over the quantity. And I think a lot of people appreciate that in this day and age.
Right on. Yeah. So to circle back to I was trying to bring up. I was going to do a question out of it, but I kind of went off topic myself. In your early days, how did you get around the whole figuring out when to commentate, or were you able to be upfront with your parents, like, hey, like I'm going to do this fun little recording thing on YouTube, and not kind of be embarrassed about it? Because I was kind of embarrassed about admitting it, and I knew many other people in the community. Such as even Seth Cole had told me, like, yeah, like I have to record in the morning when nobody's home. Like that's how he did it back in the day. But then eventually, like, you get old enough and you're like,
Hmm.
like I'm 23 now. Like if I'm doing this, like it's not a big deal. But it's like when you were, like my mother was always very like, be careful about the internet for good reason,
Oh yeah, yeah, and
But
yeah, and
like that's why like at first I like didn't want her to know that I was doing it, and yeah. So like, how did you manage that?
yeah, I never had any issue feeling uncomfortable commentating the races. It's just kind of strange because I mentioned 2014 being kind of a rough year. I got into trouble with some people back then, and it was a lot my fault. And my folks found out about that, and that was a very uncomfortable experience. So everything kind of officially started in 2015 because 2014 was not a good year in that regard, and that aspect of it really kind of made me uncomfortable. Not because I didn't want my parents to find out, but just because they were right the whole time with being careful on the internet, and didn't really work out the way I would have hoped in that regard. But I learned from it. And the aspect of creating the races and commentating the races never was a problem. I never had a time where I had to record at this point. As long as no one else in the house was sleeping, was no issue at all. Everyone's just kind of chill with it. So I never had an issue with that aspect of it in terms of actually putting it together, and I still don't. I do still live with my folks, but they're awesome. It's just you know how housing is these days, and it's like I
Oh
save a
yeah.
lot of money doing it, so everything else in my life financially is great, and you know what, I'm just yeah, it's all good with that, and they all know, like they know how much I enjoy doing this. And over the years, I've actually gotten a lot more comfortable with just talking to my folks about it. Like, yeah, they know I have all these friends. They've met, a couple of my friends before. It's like now it's just it's a good thing. Um, and I actually, thank him a lot for actually giving me the opportunity to do it when I was younger. Because if I hadn't had that opportunity in those prime years to actually get into it, I probably would never have gotten into it at this point. It has given me a lot of skills that have gone to my professional life as well. So that's kind of like the great thing about it. But we can get into that later. But no, it's never an issue. Never an issue calling races. They know I'm yelling and they know what I'm yelling about. But I think, especially my mom is like happy that like I found something that I enjoyed and was happy with. You know, and I still am. Even to this day at 26 years old, I'm still love yelling in front of the computer with these cars going in circles. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, right on. So who would you say you picked up the most from? I know you said you didn't really watch other offlane leagues too much, but you had to have watched some. So did you pick up anything from one person in particular, or did you mostly learn trial and error?
I kind of did learn mostly trial and error, at least to my memory. Um, I'm trying to think, who I really would have watched NR offline. See, I came from stop motion, so those are the people I watched when I was younger, and those are the people like I looked up to in terms of that creativity. So, guys like Double E Dud and Gino Harvey, Affleck Cup series, I really, really enjoyed watching those. And, seeing what they did with that is kind of what got me into the stop motions, which just kind of got me into NR, which in my mind at the time was like, oh, this is just an easier way to do a NASCAR stop motion, basically. Um, but I'm trying to think because I never was really I after all that happened in 2014, I really wasn't allowed to commentate and really communicate too much over the internet. And I respected my parents' decision on that because that was absolutely something they needed to do for how I was acting at the time. Um, so I didn't really get involved with other people's stuff that much because of that. And the comments were actually turned off on my channel outside of sign up videos. I was allowed to do the sign up videos, of course, until I turned 18, which, that was over 8 years ago now. But I still watch people, of course. I'm trying to think who I might have watched NR wise back then. Um, because I really didn't watch many other people's stuff. I always wanted to support other people's NR stuff. That was something that was really big for me, and I still am like that in supporting the game, supporting the community any which way I can. But I was always so busy doing my own thing, I never had time for anything else, which is a bit of a shame when you really think about it, because I really do want to support everybody and, be a part of it. And I definitely try to do so. I would say right now, outside, of course, of Caleb and Nathan, Caleb does stuff on my channel, and Nathan actually does his own series as well on top of what he does for us here on the channel now. I've always, watched and been a huge supporter of what they do. Um, but one of my favorite series that I am a part of, as an owner, is D-Wall Cup series and Joe Rakowski. Um, Joe has done this for a long time as well, and if you want another good offline person, that is absolutely the direction to go. And is Joe Rakowski. He's been doing this close to the same length I have, and has kind of solely been offline as well. But his series is actually very similar to mine. Weekly ratings, all this other stuff. And especially once I found about him, he was one that I had a lot of respect for, in terms of how he put together the series. And a lot of running in our league as well is just managing people. And that aspect is a lot of what I've learned to apply in my professional life as well, because I'm a manager now and I manage people in my profession. So learning those interpersonal skills and this community and having to do all that you have to do to run an offline league, or even it's probably the same for online as well. You're dealing with people. How league owners deal with people is the thing that I've kind of looked to and respected the most. And Joe does a great job with that and has done for a long time. And I try to model myself after things like that and just how you run a community, which can be anything, but that's a big aspect of running a successful league.
Yeah, I'm not good at managing people. Personally, I don't really like people, to be honest.
I don't
I'm
blame you.
I'm very I don't like I like social interactions, but I also hate
Mhm.
social
Oh yeah,
interaction. So it's like a
yeah.
double-edged sword.
Hmm.
So, with anxiety and all that stuff.
You gotta surround yourself around the right people.
Yeah. So yeah, you can surround yourself around the right people, but sometimes those right people, they just up and leave on you, and then you're kind of left trying to find the right people again. And I've really learned recently, not to go down a deep thought path or anything, but I've really learned recently that those right people that you surrounded yourself with for 6, 8, almost 10 years, you don't find those people really again later down the road. Like
Hmm.
you have found those people in your early years, and now they do say people change over time. Well, yes, but no.
Hmm. Absolutely.
So like you find that group of people, and you're probably gonna be friends for life. You mentioned
Hmm.
a lot of the people in the community have become your lifelong friends now. I am in the
Absolutely.
same boat as you. Like after high
Hmm.
school, I barely talked to anybody from high school. I talked to maybe one guy here that I went to school with, but that's really it. And that's just because we both watch F1. He watches it way more than me. But sometimes when I'm watching F1, I'll shoot him a message and we'll talk about F1. I talked to one other kid that I've had lunch and dinner with a couple times over the last few years, but he's very busy, doing his own thing. And then I did make one really good friend that I see a decent bit through a high school classmate of mine. And we've become great friends. We worked at the same company for a year or two. He's probably my best friend outside of this community. Unfortunately, my best friends in the community have kind of shrunk a little bit. Still, I would say decent amount of quote friends, but most I would say are just I would consider acquaintances at this point. Kind of like a coworker, like you get along with a coworker, but you don't really consider him a friend or anything. It's more of like just like a good acquaintanceship.
Yeah. I will say the folks I do work with and the environment I'm in is very good. There are actually people I do work with who I do consider friends. I'm very fortunate to be in the position that I am in professionally, in that regard. But to your point, my best friends are here in the NR community and just in the community in general. And I mentioned Andrew. Andrew is probably my closest friend that I have. Obviously you know him, you've met him, so you know how good of a guy he is,
Yeah,
and
he's a
he does. Of course,
goofball.
he's actually very much more involved in the online side than I am. So a lot of what I know about online, I kind of get from him. He's actually not as involved with offline really at all anymore. But it's fascinating. How I ended up coming to really meet Andrew and just know him. He was friends with Nathan Stapleton. Of course, Nathan's been a really good friend of mine for a long time as well. Um, and I just kind of got to know him like through that. Um, and then I saw that he was wearing a Maple Grove Raceway hat, which Maple Grove Raceway is only an hour from where I live. And I'm like, oh, Maple Grove. And he was like, oh yeah, I live in this county, and I live here. And he was like 45 minutes away from me. And come to find out, that this is kind of the really like bizarre thing about the two of us. Um, we're 90% sure we were born in the same hospital 11 months apart. So, and he's such a great dude, and absolutely love talking and hanging out with him. And we support each other in more ways than one. We really, if anything, don't even really talk and are that much. We kind of just talk life more than anything, which is kind of awesome. Nathan, especially, is a guy, Nathan Stapleton, who I've really, he's really one of my best friends, and he does a lot on the channel. And I'm not going to go into detail, but he's been through a lot in his life, and it's such an honor to be his friend and just have him in my life. He's done a lot for me, and just showing that, and just being a good friend. And met up with him on my birthday this year. Went out to where he lives, and we hung out, watched the F1 movie together. So that was a fun time. Caleb Rose as well, of course. I haven't known Caleb as long as some other folks, but. Caleb is such a great dude, such a nice guy, and he has such a passion for NR. It's more than even what I have, and he absolutely loves it. And he's such a great person to have as my right hand man. Who else? There's a lot of people, and I want to mention some of these folks here, but those three in particular, three of my closest friends that I have in the NR community, and they've all just been so wonderful to me in my life, and I'm so thankful to have them in my life.
Yeah, I think I've met Andrew. I think was the fourth person from NR I've met. Um, I met Cole Baker, aka Cole Eastwood, first, way back, way back. Then I met Brian Voiles, who's online only. He's a much older gentleman. Honestly, I don't think he listens to the podcast, but I'm gonna throw this out here so I can bust his chops. He's arguably close to being a senior citizen.
Age is just how old you are.
He's still close to a senior citizen. I gotta get an angry phone call if he ever listens to this episode. So, he's one of the few people whose phone number I have. So that's pretty cool. Then I met Kevin Touch, aka Vince Freeze, 2 years ago. I was driving down to see family in Tennessee, and so I stopped in Jersey and went to the boardwalk, and it was actually kind of funny talking about an offline league with somebody in person. Had never done that before. In like at the time 9 years of doing offline, I was like, this is weird. Like I'm talking about offline with somebody on the New Jersey boardwalk. What's going on? And then, of course, recently met with Andrew Miller, and always knew Andrew was a cool dude. He was never like a close friend, but he was a good friend. I knew him from racing online with him and such. And obviously, we became a lot closer since I've been doing commentary with him on his channel, Top Dragster. And so got to meet him, got to meet his partner Jaden, and really learned what kind of a secret goofball Andrew is. He doesn't really show the full side of himself online, which I think is a good thing. You shouldn't. Um, I'm
I
very
know.
open, so I do. But Andrew is quite the goofball, and there were a few things I learned about Andrew when I met him in person that I will not repeat out of
Yeah.
respect for him. But
Same
yeah,
here. I will respect the space there.
he is quite the goofball, I will say. But yeah, I was happy for him to be the first one. And we got to go to Buffalo Wild Wings, which is cool.
There you go.
He wimped out and got the more of like the mildest sauce you could get, which was more of like enjoying the flavor sauce. I burned off my inner nostrils. I didn't get the hottest thing, but I got something hotter than I would usually get. And I got it with 5 chicken tenders, and it was like little dip, little dip, little dip. After the third tender, and these were big tenders, it felt like my it felt like the inside under my eyes was burning. That's how much the sauce had, like the hotness had seeped into my sinuses. It felt like the under my eyelids was burning, and it's like, well, I can't blow that out of my nose at that point. Like that is in there. So that was quite the experience.
That's cool. Andrew and I have had many meals together, so I don't think we've ever been to Buffalo Wild Wings before, but we hang out a lot. So, um, but yeah, that's cool. That's cool. I've met a lot of people too in person. Actually, the first one who I actually met in person was Marty Zakela. And I actually kind of met him by accident in a way. It was actually the 2018 IndyCar race at Pocono, which that was not particularly my favorite event to have attended for reasons, of course. But I knew Marty was going to be there, and I didn't really say anything to him. And we both were like in the infield, and I heard his voice. And I'm like, "That's Marty." So we met each other there. Um, you know Trey Wright.
Yes, I
Do
know
you know Trey
Trey.
Wright? Yes,
He's
I've
been
met Trey Wright a
doing
couple of times as well. He's just recently, I think, gotten into doing the online stuff. He really loves
yes,
commentating. I
he's
think
been
more so than
doing
I do.
he's been doing a series I race.
Yes.
I've started
Hmm.
racing at again. This will be I've kind of said it in that Discord. This is like my coming back, but also like probably my final full time season over there for a while. I've had a lot of success in the Fuel Grand National Series and
Hmm.
the Fuel League as a whole. But yeah, he's been commentating. He had a bit of an oopsie on Wednesday night.
Oh no.
He forgot to click go live for YouTube. He had been streaming, but forgot to go live on YouTube. So
Oh boy.
unfortunately, that stuff
We all make
happens.
mistakes. Yeah, but I met him. I actually shout out to his dad. It was the 2019 IndyCar race. And that was the one where the storm came through, and we had no place to go because there's really not good facilities there at Pocono, and there was lightning and all that, and they've had issues with that in the past. So thankfully, his dad was there and allowed my dad and I to stay in his car and drove us to where my mom and sister were picking us up for that. But I met Trey a few times. A great guy. And of course, I've met Andrew many times before. And then I've also, going out to India, met Nathan Stapleton, I met Travis Crampton as well, his good friend. And then, of course, one of my best friends as well, who's not really, involved much with NR, but I met him from Stop Motions. And you probably know him, Murray Pompiani, and all
Nope.
of his stop motion stuff. The most awesome 43 fan from back in the day. You probably remember
Nope.
remember him. You don't
I
remember him.
I wasn't in the
He was
stop
good friends
motion.
with Alan as well, so I mean, he didn't do NR much, but he's one of my best friends, and I go with the Indy 500 him every year, and so honored to be his friend as well. So not as involved with the NR stuff as much, but always love hanging out with them. But yeah, there's just so many guys, in the community that I've met. I've met Seth before a couple of times. Met Seth at Dover last year in 2024. He went down to Dover, met him. We ate Bob Evans afterwards. Nick Gunther was with us as well. And one of Seth's other friends, I do forget his name, but that was real cool, of course. Seth's a great guy. Both the two times I met him, he's one of the nicest guys I know as well. So, yeah, there's so many great people that I've met in this community, and to your point, this is kind of that time in your life where you really make your true friends, and that's what's happened with me, and I'm very thankful for it.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, it's great meeting people. I just don't want to meet a bunch of them at once. I would rather meet them one at a time. That's
Yeah,
kind of my
it's better
social
that way.
anxiety.
It is.
All right, so we're getting down to the wire here, so I'll get over a few fun questions that thankfully I can ask you since you do play NR, at least for the
I
offline
do.
sake of it. So this is a four-part question, and it'll be phrased a little differently considering it's offline topic here today. What has been your favorite mod to use, your favorite track, and if you'd like, specific track version to use? What has your favorite series to run been? And what is has your favorite physics to watch been? And you can answer
Oh,
in any order, quick
yeah.
to longest if you like.
Yeah, so I think wow, I've done so many series. I'm gonna go ahead and start with the series because I've done many different iterations of different mods, different cup series, different truck. Well, actually, we've only kind of really done one truck series, but the Wall Wall Cup series and what it has become is absolutely my favorite thing that I've put together. And I talked about earlier just how everyone kind of came together and did their own thing with it. It was pretty incredible. So it's been so much fun having that, and that has truly been my favorite series that I've done. I've always enjoyed doing IndyCar. I've done an IndyCar series, or Caleb's done an IndyCar series. We run a mock Indy 500, essentially the Indy 250, and we've done that now. I've had the Indy 250 for 11 years now, so that's always really fun to do each year. Um, I wouldn't specifically say I have a favorite mod. Um, and I think it's a little bit different with offline because you can kind of get away with some things in terms of the graphics and whatnot with offline. I guess you can too with online as well. Um,
Okay, how
but what I
about
will
this?
say is, you know, what I will say is I have a lot of respect for the people who put this all together. Because I'm not smart enough to know how to like create a mod or create a track, and I have a
Mm-hmm.
lot of respect for these people. And then something I do feel bad about. I don't feel like I've given enough attention and respect to the people who have done that, and that's one issue I feel like with offline, and that I do want to improve on. Full Circle Racing Designs. They were the ones that put together the next gen mod, which we use for the Wall Cup series, and you know they just put that together because they love the game, and I think that's really cool.
Right on. Well, so how about this? Before we get to track and physics, um, if every mod was going to get deleted and you could only save three, which three would you save?
Well, I would save the next gen mod because that's what the Wall Cup series uses right now. Um, Definitely would have to keep a truck mod as well because the Turkey Hill Truck series is probably the second series on the channel, even though
Which
Caleb's
which
running
truck
that.
mod?
Well, I think the one we use right now is 15, if I'm not mistaken,
Okay.
which that's like 10 years old, but this is what we've used. And I love IndyCar, and Indy 250 has to run. We got to do the Indy 250 each year, so definitely the newest IndyCar model, which I think is still 20. I think that's the one we still use is the 2020 IndyCar mod,
I
but
heard that mod had a lot of frame rate issues. Is it really that bad, or is it not that bad?
I've not had that much issue with it, but Caleb
Okay.
has had a little bit more trouble on his computer with it. So I think it just depends on how good the graphics card that you have in your computer is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure that's the one that uses 2020. The only race I run with that now is the Indy 250, which, going back to track, I would actually have to specifically say one of my favorite tracks is Indy Revamp 2010. Um, that's the track that I've always used the Indianapolis 250 on, which is, a huge race that we do on the channel, and I absolutely love it. Um, and for when it was released, it's very detailed. I think it was only
Yeah,
really
Revamp
7 years after the
Reloaded did
game,
really
and
good.
yeah, that was a very good track that they made, and it's definitely one of my favorite tracks visually and in terms of the way it races for offline as well, both in stock car and PTA physics for IndyCar. Um, it's a lot of fun. A lot of fun. It's a great track.
Oh, right on. So, what would you say your favorite physics to watch is? Do you think you have one? I mean, there's only four, but
Yeah, I mean, PTA, each one kind of serves its own purpose for offline.
yep.
So that's kind of the nice thing about it. I think in terms of getting a good stock car race, GNS is the best one for offline. Cup is pretty good as well. CTS is actually not the best for offline. It's a lot very much like a
Really?
regular next gen race. I don't find it, and maybe that's just my own personal thing too. But um, the short track racing is much better with GNS physics, at least in my experience, than it is with CTS physics for offline. Um, and that's kind of where I noticed it. I think on Speedway CTS is pretty good, but we actually run the Turkey Hill Truck Series on GNS physics and not CTS physics,
Okay.
interestingly enough. So, but too, I made the decision to change that a few years ago, and once I make a decision, I kind of just stick with something. So maybe I might go revisit CTS in the future. But PTA is great for IndyCar, and you can mod the tracks to make it rather realistic for open wheel racing as well. So that's a great physics as well. So I don't particularly have a favorite physics. And like I said, each one kind of serves its own purpose when you're doing an offline league. And a lot of what we do, to kind of affect that is in the eye and eyes of the track, and changing grip levels and changing racing lines and things like that. And we've come to really do that a lot behind the scenes to really make these tracks what they are for the product of the racing itself. So that's where we kind of do a lot of our work in terms of getting what we want out of a racetrack.
Right on. Yeah, I would say CTS is probably my favorite when it comes to action, especially on the intermediate tracks. There are some intermediate tracks
Yeah.
where you can get that super speedway feel at the beginning of the run, and then the tire wear kicks in. And depending on how you have the ratings set up, the more experienced guys start to drive their way to the front if they had a bad Q run, etc. Um, Kansas 2013 1.1 is really good in any physics, really. Um, and then Michigan 2019 MB, I made a grip change to the paint line, and that turned that track into a thriller of a CTS racetrack. They tend to wreck a lot, but they will go 4 and 5 wide, and it is very exciting to watch.
Yeah. But it's funny you say that. Caleb just dad ran Michigan for the Turkey Hill Truck Series about a week ago. If there's any one race you want to watch, I highly recommend watching that one. It was wild. The BC Rich Guitars 250 in Michigan, wild race. Definitely want to watch it. And I think it's very similar. I know we did some I-9 changes, probably similar to what you did to get that 4 or 5 wide racing. It's a lot of fun. Michigan's a good track. It's a great track.
Yeah, Michigan and California have always been great tracks. California is a little harder, some of these newer versions to get right, but
Well, you don't
our
want the
our
newest version of it because it doesn't exist anymore.
what do you
It's a
mean?
shame. I'm,
Oh, 2022.
I'm joking. Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Well, so
2024, it's not there anymore.
to go into a little online section here, so There's a league called Mondays of Thunder. They run a truck series and a cup series, and both of them they run a mix of cup and CTS physics, depending on the track type, package, what they want to run. Basically, it's a ton of fun. Like if you were looking to get into online, I would say try Mondays of Thunder because it's super fun. Obviously, you probably wouldn't be contending for wins at first, but it's super fun, pretty laid back. Not a lot of guys, really anyone in there who's like overly serious about the league, short season stuff like that. But so we ran a skin edit of the Auto Club track that they said they were going to make the short track. Let me just say that track sucks to drive on. um, the first race we did a doubleheader race. The first race there is a weird. There's a the setup was bottoming out in one, so you would go into turn one and you would have to brake at a certain point. If you didn't brake at the certain point and you braked 25 feet too late, you would hit that bump wrong and bottom out, and it would just spin the car out immediately. So that happened to me at the end of the race in a stage where we were only doing 2 cautions for the full race and 1 caution per stage, and it happened after the 1 caution for the stage that I self spun and won. Should have won that race, didn't. And then in the second race, if you are familiar or not, you can randomly break a gear online. It's very rare, depending on if you're using H pattern. It's very rare. If you're using sequential, it's a little more common to happen. And on lap 3, I lost third gear because we were running a shift setup. So you needed to downshift the third, then upshift the fourth, and that was like another 2 to 3 tenths per lap time. And so on H pattern, I primarily randomly will just break a gear on a downshift. On sequential, a lot of people break gears when they upshift. So I lost third gear on lap 3, and that ruined my race from lap 3 on. I think I still ended up with the top 5, but it was miserable. So that track can burn in hell. I'm glad they
Yeah,
never
I don't
made
think
it.
it's ever gonna actually happen
No,
in
they
real
can't.
life.
I've
So
heard the warehouses that they built a lot closer to that where they were gonna put it than I guess maybe they initially thought, or maybe they bought more land. But yeah, that track is not gonna be a thing, unfortunately.
yeah, it's a shame because Auto Club was a great track. California was a great track. And we still run that in the Wall Cup series, by the way. So,
Oh yes.
and it will stay next year. So we're excited for that.
All right, so
But
exit
yeah,
exit topic here is your other interests: music, movies, TV shows, anything else. What else do you like to do or have interest in?
yeah. So it's interesting you mentioned music. Definitely love music. Much so I actually write and record music. Though I
Okay.
would not say I'm actually a professional musician in any way. It's all just an amateur project. But it kind of started around 2020 where I kind of got into recording music, and I just started by doing so on GarageBand on my phone. Kind of upgraded to using Logic Pro, though haven't done too much past couple of months with that. But I absolutely love it. And it's a very, very different type of project than like what the NR stuff is. Andrew really likes talking about it. He listens to my music on there, and it is available on streaming services and all that. But it's a really cool thing that I do that you know really really helped me through a lot of things over the past few years. And it's a creative outlet that I really enjoy. But of course, with that, I also enjoy listening to music as well. Um, I would say our music interests are probably a little bit different. I'm not as into like the heavier, rock stuff. I will say I am a big 21 Pilots fan. And it's funny, the day that we're recording this, they actually just dropped a new album. And I'm going to be going to their concert in Hershey 2 weeks from now. So I'm excited for that as well. It'll be my first time actually seeing them in person. So I'm a big fan of them. Um,
Yeah, I got a concert tomorrow. Actually, I'm seeing 4 bands. 3 of them I listen to quite a bit, so I'm really hyped to see those 3 bands. The fourth band, which is the opener, I don't know them at all, so I'm kind of just gonna be probably sitting there in my seat, eating an overpriced hot dog or two, and probably sipping on some liquid death water. I plan to get my sugar rush before the show, so I will be mostly hydrating while I'm at the venue.
That's a good idea. Always good to stay hydrated. Um, but yeah, that's definitely one of my interests there outside of NR in terms of creative projects. And I find myself to be a very creative person, as well. And I'm always like looking to do something, looking to create something. So that's an outlet for me as well. That NR doesn't necessarily, suffice in that regard. But yeah, that's always a fun thing to do.
There was I don't remember what it was called, but when I had Windows 8.1 still, a Windows 8.1 computer, there was something I had randomly found on the store that you could download it and it was like all these like different samples of like guitar riffs, drums, and other instruments, and it was like a music creator. You could just make like instrumentals and stuff like that. And I remember I made a few, and I would like tinker here and there, and it was fun. But I was just tinkering with like already pre-made samples and stuff, and I made like a few songs and stuff, and it was fun. It was cool. And then I remember like I didn't use it for like a year or two, and then I got a new computer, and I was like, hey, I kind of want to download that again. And like because I remembered, oh, I think I could change the tuning on that, and I had learned more like what tuning was at the time that I wanted to like fiddle with it again. So I knew like, oh, like I bet like I could never make anything like super heavy that I really wanted to make. And I think it was because I didn't know how tuning worked. So I was like, oh, if I go back to it, I bet I can make something heavy now. And then I just couldn't remember what the program was called, or I couldn't find it. So that kind of just faded out. If you are or not aware, I do writing, so I like writing stories, and mainly just one story currently that I'm focusing on. But I am self-published, so I got that going for me.
That's cool. That's cool. Good for you, man. Yeah, that's awesome. And I would say the story writing and songwriting are very similar veins as well. And with the music that I write, it's kind of a story-driven kind of idea going through all the projects that I've made. But kind of, I completely forgot to mention like this, but a lot of the theme music that I use in the NR stuff are actually compositions that I made in Logic or in GarageBand as well, and that actually is kind of purposeful to avoid any copyright issues. So you can have a nice piece of music in the background for like the starting grid or for the intro and all that. All that I actually composed myself. So
Nice.
it's all very self done in that regard. So all the themes that we have in our races are all my own things, and I don't have to worry about anyone giving me a copyright strike because I'm the one that legally owns the rights to them. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. So anything other than music that you really strongly feel for, or would you say it's pretty much NR 2003 and music?
Yeah, those are two of my big things, of course, that I really enjoy. I'm actually a member of American Coaster Enthusiasts as well. I
Okay.
enjoy roller coasters. I don't get out to go to parks as much as I used to, but I really do enjoy roller coasters. Gone to Coaster Con a couple of times. One was at Cedar Point. Another time was down in Dollywood in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. So that's definitely something that I enjoy. But I also just love walking and just hiking. And where I live here in southeastern Pennsylvania, there are a lot of just nature preserves and just wonderful places to walk. They're peaceful and quiet. And I really enjoy it. Like I try to make it at least once a week, to walk, if not more. And it's a very enjoyable, um, relaxing hobby. I wouldn't say hobby. It's just something I just love to do, and I always try to make sure I do it. But I really enjoy nature. And, I really just enjoy being out walking in a forest by myself. I really enjoy doing that. And you'll find me in my local park, which is actually what you're seeing on my profile picture right now is my local park. I absolutely love that place. Like it is my home, and I walk there quite a bit. One of my favorite places in the world.
Gotcha. Right on. Yeah. Oh, I lost my train of thought. This is awful. I like to go on a walk here and there too. I've got a pretty nice road. Tons of people walk and ride their bikes, walk their dogs. So it's a pretty nice road. People that live on this road, obviously, they know people are going to walk, so they all move over and stuff. So it's a good road to walk on. It's Not a lot of corners, which is good. Makes it a good road to walk on, nice and straight. No blind zones, really, except for one spot. Um, what were you talking about before the hiking?
Roller coasters.
Roller coasters.
Completely,
Okay.
completely opposite thing.
So roller coasters. I was gonna say if you wanted to follow a YouTube channel, Dylan Young has a channel. We the
I
Coasters.
think I am subscribed
Yep.
to it. Yes.
It's him,
So,
him and
yeah.
Kyle Matthews that run that.
Hmm.
They have Instagram too as well.
That's cool. That's cool.
Well, all right, Alex. Well, I think that pretty much concludes this episode. If you've got a long list of people you'd like to shout out, feel free to do so.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many people. We have in the server, we've got 200 and some people. Um, I'm gonna miss some people, but I'm gonna try to mention some people here. Matt Tuck, who's been a good friend of mine as well. That's not actually his real name. That's an alias name.
So I've
If you
heard
know
that
music,
name.
you might know who Matt Tuck is in music.
I've heard
But
the
we
name
all know him as
before.
Matt Tuck. And you'll hear him as the co-commentator on so many races. Really good friend of mine. And I actually met up with him 6 hours at the Glen. When was it? Last year, 2024. Um, Stuart Gratton. I've actually known
Yep,
Stuart
know
for
him.
11 years, I
Wow.
think. I've known him longer than actually. I've known Murray, Murray Papani longer than anybody. And then Stewart's second in line with that. So Stewart has been one of my close friends for a long time. I mentioned Travis Crampton. Of course, he's good friends with Nathan Stapleton. Igor Barreto is one of our moderators. I haven't talked to him in a while, but he's a great dude as well. Um, Got to shout out Hergé Alonso. He actually does a lot of the graphic design for us. I mean, we like have a whole team behind this. It's kind of crazy. But Hergé actually does a lot of the graphic design on the tracks for us to kind of like make them, put the Wall Walk Cup Series and all these logos on the tracks to kind of make it look like our own track. So got to give Hergé a huge shout out as well because he does so much for us in that regard. Um, those are kind of the main guys who are a really big part of the channel. Um, I'm trying to think, if there's anyone else I want to mention. Um, we got so many people that do stuff. Trey Wright, of course, Trey's a great friend of mine. He does stuff. He's got his own little section in our server. Brendan Wilmington does as well. Brendan's a great friend of mine. Echo Evans Rashi does a lot of stuff as well. And then Josh Williamson also has stuff. We have a little NR Creator Hub, and everyone's kind of got their own little space to post their own little projects in our server. So that's just a sample size of some of the people in the community, and there have been so many people who have been around. I mean, we mentioned Jesse Turner. Jesse's been around for the whole time. Nicholas Samudio has been signing up for our stuff for. Nicholas Samudio is actually how it's pronounced. We've been mispronouncing it for 10 years over here, and
Samudio.
yeah, he's kind of given us permission to mispronounce it at this point.
I'm trying to remember. He signed up for my series a lot back in the day, and
I think he did, yeah.
I'm trying to remember if I said Samudio first, if I said Samudio. I do not remember.
I think if I'm not mistaken, it's Samudio. So Nicholas, if you're watching, I am sorry for mispronouncing it all these years. The thing is, so many people have heard me say it's Samudio, which is not correct. A lot of other people now say it as well, and it's kind of synonymous with what we do on the channel. Because he actually won the closest finish on the channel all the way back in 2015. Dead heat finish in the Daytona 500. So that was pretty cool. We call him Mr. Edge because he's won a lot of races online or offline that have been really, really close. Zachary Fitzwater, I mean, everyone knows
Good
Fitzy.
old Fitzy. Yep.
Everyone knows Fitzy. He's been around since the beginning as well. Blaine Keys is a guy who's actually been around since the beginning. Blaine's really good in the
Oh, I
offline
haven't
side of
heard
it
that
right
name
now, which is
before.
pretty cool. Blaine's kind of more of an offline guy too. Thomas Troxell's been around pretty much since the
I
beginning as
know
well in
Thomas from
2015.
online.
Yeah, Thomas, I know he does a lot of online, but he's been part of our
He's
stuff
kind of a
for a good
weapon.
10 years too.
I haven't raced around him in a little bit, but when I did, he was a bit of a weapon. But he was on controller, so.
Trey Bartow's been around for 10 years. I don't know if you know Trey. He's good friends with Joe Rakowski. He's always a co-commentator with Joe
Sounds
with
a little
his
familiar, but
stuff.
I don't think so.
Um, I'm trying to think, who else was in that first race that we did. We kind of went over a lot of these guys when we did our 10th anniversary race back in April. And there's a lot of guys who have been a part of it just for so long, for 10 years. I mean, it's just kind of, and you know too, you did it for that long as well. It's like 10 years, 10 years, a whole decade. I mean, that's just kind of wild to think about. But I'll conclude by saying it's one of the greatest things to happen in my life. Like the people that I've met in this community, especially like to your point, these are the friends that you make it. They're friends your whole life, and they're most of those guys, all those guys are going to be friends my whole life, and I'm very thankful for them. It's such a blessing to be a part of this community, and especially the past couple of years, I've really come to realize that. As I've matured, I'm 26 years old now. I've realized that's the special part of it. So. Sure, it's just a game. It's just us going in circles, but at the end of the day, what really makes it special is the people behind it, and there are real people behind all these names that sign up, the names that race online and offline, and that's the special part of it, and that's what makes this game, this community so great, and I'm thankful to be a part of it.
All right, on Alex. Well, I appreciate you joining me, and we'll see how
You're
many
welcome.
other offliners we might get here in the near future. We have had technically a couple offline guys on already, but it was more online based because they do a ton of online as well, such as we have had Seth Cole, we had Michael Norman, Dylan Young, of course, and I might be forgetting one or two people that also dabbled in offline. But DJ
Andrew did
Curtis.
for a little bit.
DJ Curtis is a big one that we had. He was the third
Oh yeah.
episode. And yeah, thanks for joining me. This was episode 21 of Who's That Driver. I actually do not have an idea for who the next person will be, but I will look at my sheet and we will see when that gets out. Did not think we were going to have two episodes back to back weeks, so we might be on a 2 week break again. We'll see. Anyways, thanks for listening, and thanks again to Alex for joining me.